Today's episode of the podcast is with Norman Ohler. Norman is a fantastic writer and he wrote one of my all-time favourite books called Blitzed. Blitzed is an amazing story about the drug history within the Nazis. His most recent book, The Infiltrators, is about two lovers, Harrow and Libertas, who are fighting against the Nazis. I highly recommend that book also. Thank you very much to Norman for his time. Anything to do with World War II is fascinating to me, and people go out and read his books because they're great. Enjoy the podcast. Goodbye. So Norman, how are you?
I'm quite good actually. How are you?
I'm quite good too. In the circumstances, but I'm quite good.
Yeah.
I found out about you a few years ago when I heard about your book Blitzed, and like I was saying to you, this is like it was. I couldn't believe about the about the drugs and the Nazis and all that kind of stuff. I thought it was like, is this fake or something? But it was so real. Like like that book is just enthralling. I think I read it in a few days, and it was like just amazing. I really, it was great, and as well so well written and everything, and it took you on a great journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, and The Infiltrators. How did you come about writing that?
Well, when I was researching for Blitz at the Institute for Contemporary History in Munich, I was looking at files from the Air Force Ministry because Goering had been using a lot of drugs, and actually the whole Air Force apparatus was full of drug takers. And I came across a very interesting, touching letter by Harrow Schulze-Beusen, which had nothing to do with drugs actually, but I just found his writing style. It was the last letter of his life actually, the letter he wrote to his father before he was executed. I found the style and what he was talking about and what actually happened to him. And I found that story so interesting that even though it had nothing to do with drugs, I wanted to research it and maybe turn it into another book, because from the letter I could learn that Harrow had been in the resistance against the dictatorship, and I had not really heard about this guy before. So I thought after Blitz would be interesting to look at young intelligent people in Berlin, how they reacted. And I found this quite large group that was doing various things against Hitler and his government and the regime. So I thought it's interesting for a book.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was quite taken back how when the SS got Harrow first, how much they like whipped him and they put a swastika in his leg, and it's uncomfortable to read all the kind of torture that the poor guy went through.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as funny maybe as Blitz, because it's more tragic, or it's more of a drama than a farce, even though, I mean, Blitz is not just a farce, it's all real, but it reads like a farce maybe.
Yeah.
But Harrow and Libertas, his wife, their stories are very real, and they give you a sense of how it was actually to live in Berlin during those times. So it's an intense journey.
Yeah.
For the reader as well as it was for me as the writer.
Would you ever want to make it into a TV show or a movie or anything like that?
Well, I've been approached by quite a good director.
Oh.
The only problem is it's quite expensive actually, because it's you have to show all these scenes during those times, and it has to be quite real, obviously, to be good. So I think it's terrific for a TV series because there's so many characters and so many developments, but it's a huge project. So let's hope that it will happen. But I'm never optimistic when it comes to movies.
Oh well,
Usually nothing happens.
I was so surprised about the MGM movie companies when sorry, when I was reading the book and
Mm.
how they were like they didn't really they let the Nazis uh, change plots and storylines in the movies just to suit German audiences. That was like crazy.
Yeah, Libertas worked for MGM in Berlin, and that gave me the opportunity to um, look at how Hollywood studios behaved during the so-called Third Reich. And
Mm.
I mean, America was a pretty pro-Nazi country also for quite some time until they actually did join the war when Japan attacked them. But before, a lot of the racist policies of the Nazis fell on fertile ground in America, which always has been a racist country. So maybe it's not that surprising that Hollywood kind of listened to what Goebbels wanted them to do, but it still is shocking
Yeah.
to learn that the Nazis had such a big influence on Hollywood production in the late 30s, mid to late 30s.
Yeah, I was quite like I had never heard of the Mad Dog of Europe, so I was Googling that and I
Mm,
was like, oh, that was interesting to say the least.
mm. Yeah, that was a big project to make a film actually about Hitler.
Yeah.
Then they dropped it because the Nazis said if you produce this film, you're not going to show any more films in Germany. And Germany apparently was the second biggest market after America. So they rather listen to the Nazis and not risk their business in Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Do you find when you're doing research on that subject matter that you get emotionally involved, or can you cut that off?
Well, I do want to get involved because
Mm.
I'm not just a historical nonfiction writer. I'm always like a full-blooded writer, or I mean, I write novels also. So for me, it's very emotional, and yeah, I mean, especially writing about Haro and Libertas was also emotionally challenging because it was, I really started liking these characters, and
Mm.
so to see the odds that they're up against, and the apparatus trying to silence them and destroy them, was quite harrowing also for me to research and write about it.
Yeah.
But it's also always fun for me to write. So even if I write about bleak things, I enjoy it actually because I enjoy the craft of writing. So yeah, it's always a fun thing to write for me.
Does it take you long to write books like that? Because I'm sure you have to do so much research and things of that
I mean, I
nature.
was in kind of a good shape when I wrote it because I already knew the world pretty well through Blitz. So I felt familiar in that world.
Hmm.
Um, so it took me about 2 years, which is not long actually for a book of that size and including the research. So that was in a way a quick project.
Yeah. Yeah. Like before Blitz came out, was there that much knowledge of the drug culture within the Nazis, or was it just on the periphery that a lot of people knew about, but it wasn't well known?
Well, actually, I didn't know about it. I hadn't known anything. And most people had not known anything. So when the book came out, most people were surprised. But I mean, there were a few people who knew some things, like some historians, some niche historians had examined a little bit about the methamphetamine use of the army, but it was not known to the public really.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Some
was.
people had known that Morel was a kind of a weird
Yeah.
doctor, Hitler's personal physician, but no one had really examined what he was actually giving to the dictator. So
Yeah.
it's pretty new that the book brought out a lot of new stuff.
Do you think that's what kind of screwed things up for him with regard to the war? Hitler, I mean, sorry.
Well, I think not really. I mean, what screwed it up for him was his closed mindset, his idea that the Germans are superior to other
Hmm.
people and would, of course, win the war, against even the whole world at the same time, which is a
Yeah.
ridiculous idea. It's an irrational idea. So he was leading a war with irrational convictions, and that backfired. The drugs certainly didn't help him to see the reality, so they kept him in his, or they removed him more and more from reality. So I would say that the drugs probably helped Germany lose the war, but it would have lost it even without drugs. But the drugs did alter, the course of the war, and might have prolonged it actually, because the
Right.
drugs were partly responsible for the early successes in the Second World War against France and Great Britain. So it's interesting to examine the drugs, but overall, I think Germany would have lost even without the drugs, and Hitler would have died even without the drugs, but it would have looked and felt differently.
Right. Yeah, because when I was reading it, it was like a guy's descent of him. It felt like he was dying off in a slow kind of death towards the end. He was like a prisoner in his little
Mm.
bunker, which was not that I feel sorry for Hitler in any way, but he definitely didn't. He wasn't enjoying life. Let's just say.
No, no, he kind of dug his own trap and got dug it further and further, and in the end, he couldn't move at
Yeah,
all anymore.
yeah. It was weird. I just never even knew about it. Like, how do you go about researching that? Do you have to go to a special facility where they have records and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, there's the main archive in Germany is the Federal Archive, and then we have the Military Archive. The Military Archive is a huge archive which details basically all the movements of the military, the different campaigns, and like it's warehouses full of documents. So the trick is to search for the documents that you're interested in, and you can't just type into the computer drugs and it would give you all the documents with drugs, because when the documents were indexed in the 50s, drugs was not a search topic. So you have to kind of learn a lot. You have to know quite a bit before you go into the archive, and then you can look at units and tank troops, and then you can find stuff.
Yeah.
It's not so easy. That's why most historians don't go to the archives, because they're too
Ah.
lazy.
Were you like really into World War II history before you wrote the book, or did it heighten it?
Um, I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't like a World War II freak or anything like that,
Hmm.
but I had always been quite interested in the Nazi period through my grandfathers, who were both active during that time. Not in a huge deal. They weren't like big party animals or anything, but they were like normal. I mean, Nazi party animals.
Yeah.
They were like normal Nazis or normal soldiers.
Right.
But still, it was interesting to me, and because they were in some way connected to those crimes that were committed, especially in the concentration camps.
Yeah.
Um, so it had always been of interest to me, and I had always been somehow close to it. And then when I started to write Blitz, I really did extensive research. The research for Blitz took longer than for the infiltrators. Took about 5 years,
Hmm.
and I really know a lot about it now. So, but it's such a complex world,
Yeah.
Nazi the Nazi world, that there's still things to learn, I think, or to new weird stuff that comes out.
You didn't get into all those ridiculous conspiracy theories about Hitler going to Argentina and all that stuff.
Not really. I mean, I was interviewed once by a Colombian radio station, and they said that I, being the number one expert on Hitler right now in the world, I don't know if I am, but I'm probably one of the top 5 experts on Hitler in the world. I should now tell them whether it's true or not true that Hitler survived and went to South America. So I said it's not true. He died in the bunker. And the radio woman, she was very happy that I made that clear now.
Oh,
So people in Colombia don't believe anymore that Hitler's still around.
well, that's good.
As a senior citizen by now, probably like a really old.
Yeah.
When was he born? He would be like over 120 years old now.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's some interesting conspiracy theories. I don't know if it's conspiracy theories, but a friend of mine, he always says they made UFOs, the
Seen that.
Nazis. So I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in it, but maybe they did. But there's no records that I found. So I mean, there's one guy who was close to Hitler. He was one of his servants, Linge.
Hmm.
And he claimed, like he later said, that one day he saw a flying saucer landing in a forest clearing when he was together with Hitler. They were looking at, a new development of this wonder weapon. So I don't know why he would say that later. He said that later after the war. Did he say that because he's crazy, or did he say that because he really saw it? I don't know. So there's some things we don't really know yet and might never really know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, maybe I don't know.
Why do you think he could convince so many people about to do horrendous things? Like a lot of people would have been normal people who worked in shops and this, and they did atrocious things that they would never have probably thought about before, but yet they did it under the guise of that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, Hitler really had a talent to bring out the worst in people, and sometimes he was not so much a leader as someone who allowed things. So it was clear during Nazi Germany, during that time, that you could basically behave your worst. You could even kill people and you would not be sanctioned.
Yeah.
In fact, it would actually be, encouraged by the regime if you killed Jews or so-called gypsies or homosexuals. But in a way, it's kind of similar. I mean, on a different scale, what we've seen now with this bus of Biden and Harris in the United States and the Trump supporters, kind of, not attacking the bus, but kind of harassing these people. And the president says, yeah, that's fine. It's okay. I mean, a leader, has, certain responsibilities to frame a society and to frame situations. And Hitler framed them in a, very racist and, very racist way, so people could actually act on their worst impulses. And that was just a crazy time when you could do bad things, and many people kind of take the opportunity to do bad things. I don't know why human beings want to do that. That's really sad, that, even if Hitler says you can all murder Jews, if no one would have done it, then, no one would have done it. But
yeah,
people just did it. It's really sad and unfortunate that it happened.
Yeah, it's kind of odd what people can do when they're convinced of that they're doing the right thing. The evil that people can do it's quite scary, and people who you wouldn't think would do evil things.
Yeah.
Do you think?
That's why I don't know how I would have reacted, or because we just can't know how we would have been.
Yeah.
That's why I thought the story around the infiltrators was interesting, because they really made a point of not, being part of this madness, but being against it and trying to stop it.
Yeah. Did the Gestapo name them the Red Orchestra, or did they name themselves that?
They never gave themselves a name because they didn't want to be labeled.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of their policy, because they were not really left or right or communist or
Yeah.
socialist or democratic. They were basically pluralistic, so they allowed all kinds of opinions. That was Harrow's program. He said, my program is that we include different viewpoints and different strategies, and that's why they never gave them the group a name. The name comes from the Gestapo, which tried to label them as communists, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's another parallel to Donald Trump, who says that America is now threatened by communists because you know people of color go to the streets and demand their rights. Then they're like labeled communist mobs. So Harrow and his group, they were also labeled communists by the Gestapo, which they were not, even though they had a few communists within their network, because they also didn't exclude communists. They were, open to also to radical leftist ideas, which I think is good. So yeah, Red Orchestra is a Gestapo label that does not really reflect on the true nature of this network.
Yeah, it's crazy. Around that time, you have like three tyrants. They're almost like supervillains. Like you have Stalin, Mussolini, and Hitler. It's. I mean, I'm sure we have many today, but they're quite kind of. It's like something out of a movie. They're like characters, even though they've done horrendous things. But they're very kind of famous for their awful deeds, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, I also find it interesting that the Nazi government itself had these crazy characters. You
Mm-hmm.
have like not only Hitler, you have Goebbels, Goering, Himmler. I mean, these four guys are just insane. It was really a unusual time, and in a way, we can be lucky that the Soviet Union had such a freak as Stalin
Serious freak.
leading it, because he was really, basically defeating Hitler. It was mostly, the Red Army on the ground, being so viciously organized that they were actually able to, stand their ground and defend their country and then actually invade Germany. So yeah, it's interesting. But also Churchill is interesting. I mean, Churchill is certainly can be criticized for many things, but he was also like a total freak that like said, no, we're gonna win this thing against Nazi Germany. We're not gonna give in. We're just gonna stand up and fight. So it's very important for England to have like a strong-willed leader that
Mm-hmm.
really takes the challenge.
Mm.
So this battle between Churchill, Stalin, and Hitler is, of course, very interesting. So Hitler had, was bad. He had bad luck that he had such potent opponents.
Yeah. Do you think he was intelligent, Hitler?
Well, not really. I think he was quite smart in a way. So if you're in a room with him, he might outsmart you because he has the power behind him, and he was probably very good in talking and in convincing and in kind of not letting you have your word, dominating situations. I think he was good in that. And he had some kind of knowledge about all kinds of stuff, architecture, fashion, but he was basically a closed-minded, small-minded person. So he was not open to new ideas or anything like that. His mind was not flexible. So he's not really I would not really call him intelligent. Probably Stalin was more intelligent. That's
Yeah,
my feeling. But I'm not a Stalin expert. This man is still kind of a riddle to me. But Hitler's not so intelligent.
there's a great book on Stalin called Waiting for Stalin. It's an amazing book. It's this huge book by Stephen Coren. I think I said his name wrong, but it's fascinating book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Waiting for Stalin, Waiting for Hitler. It's called Waiting for Hitler. It's a great book. It's huge, but it's well worth the read.
It's on what? It's on Stalin?
Yeah, yeah. It's called Waiting for Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the second book of a trilogy he's doing on just the whole life of Stalin. Because he was a quite a character too. Like,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's a strange time with all those guys back then. You
Yeah.
know, your book, The Infiltrators, is it is it getting published next year under a different name, though? Bohemians.
No, that's the name in America.
Oh right,
It's already out.
yeah, because I got it as like The Infiltrators. I got it, and then I was on Amazon. I see something The Bohemians, and I was like, okay, is that the
Yeah,
same
I don't
book?
know why the UK publishing house chose a different title.
Oh,
They like the Infiltrators better than the Bohemians, but it does create a bit of confusion.
yeah. What's your official title for it?
Well, in Germany, it's just called Haro und Libertas. So it just has the
Oh,
names. That was actually Anthony Beever's suggestion. Um, but I think the Bohemians is a better title. I actually like Bohemians, but the Infiltrators also is good. I don't know what's better. What do you think?
I think Bohemians, because that's
Mm,
kind of what they kind of were in a lot of ways.
mm.
I know you could say they infiltrate and everything, but it's Infiltrators more very spy-like, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. Do you like send your books to Anthony Beaver before you publish them, just to get his opinion on?
Well, we got to know each other when Blitz came out when I was in England, and we became friends. And then I discussed the Harrow book, The Bohemians, with him, and he gave a lot of advice while I was researching and structuring the book.
Hmm.
And yeah, then he read it. He contributed a quote for it that I think should be printed on the cover of the Infiltrator. So yeah, he did read it and likes it.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Wow. Do you think the torture that Harrow got at first from the SS, do you think that's what made him into who he was?
Yeah, probably that's the defining moment for him when he realizes that uh, conversations are
Hmm.
no longer possible with this kind of opponent or enemy. So he really understands that there's no discourse possible with the Nazis, and
Hmm.
that's unfortunately true. You know, that's the problem. They're not open to rational exchange.
Hmm. Yeah. It's quite
That's where
sad.
democracy ends.
Yeah. It's funny because the world kind of now in a lot of ways politically is very divided too. Like America is like so
Mm,
divided more than it's ever been, I think. And
mm,
it looks like they're going to have a civil war or something like that nearly.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Trump really. I mean, I read once that Mussolini made the definition that fascism is um, a system um, where too much corporate power uh, combined with authoritarian leadership destroys democracy. So we can actually see the rise of fascism all over the world. Um, so the Nazis were not really defeated in 1945. I mean, they were defeated in Germany, sure, at the time, but these fascist tendencies are still very much alive today, unfortunately,
Yeah,
destroying our democracies.
Poland's gone back a lot of steps. Like Poland's
Mm,
gone crazy, like right wing now.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy, you know?
Yeah,
Strange.
it's only 50 kilometers east of here,
Yeah.
where people are being arrested just because they demonstrate or speak their mind.
Seen that.
It's very worrying.
Seen that. Have you ever watched The Man in the High Castle?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of episodes. I kind of like it, but somehow I don't stick to it. I don't know, but I like the whole idea. I mean, the production design is very good,
Yeah.
so it's interesting.
Do you get time to watch much stuff, or do you read? Are you just reading or writing all the time?
Me, I don't have that much time, but I think now with the new lockdown we have in Germany, maybe I'll watch a bit more now, because we can't go to restaurants right now. So
The,
it's a good time for the streaming services right now.
there's a really good German show called Dark. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Yeah, I've just seen like the first season, and people tell me that it gets better and better.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
So I think I want to get into that too.
yeah, that it's really cool. It's really interesting.
Mm,
Well, are you
mm.
working on anything new now at the moment?
I am actually. I'm writing kind of a successor to Blitz, looking at what happened, when the war ended with the drugs.
Oh,
Yeah, but I don't want to talk much more about it because I'm still researching it and writing it, so it's still a
yeah.
secret to me even
Oh,
what it actually is going to be. But it's interesting.
the Nazis never got into psychedelics or anything like that, did they?
Not really. I mean, they were just before that whole psychedelic wave, broke with LSD was developed, not just developed, discovered, really discovered in 43. I mean, they did use mescaline for interrogation techniques, so that is interesting. But they were more into the stimulants and the opioids than the psychedelics.
Yeah, because then the CIA started using LSD for MK Ultra and all that kind of stuff in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
I
it's
think that's interesting.
oh, it's very interesting. I was reading a book by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind. It's all about just psychedelics, and I think it's more about psychedelics and like mental health and stuff like that because there's been really
Hmm.
great research on mushrooms and LSD to help people with depression and anxiety and OCD and stuff like that. And it's I do find when I
It's a good
take
book.
yeah, oh, it's a brilliant book. Yeah, it's a great book. But I find when I
How to
take
change your mind.
yeah, Michael Pollan.
Huh?
Yeah, it's by Michael Pollan.
Psychedelics are interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
This
Oh,
is like a groundbreaking book on the subject.
yeah, it's a brilliant book. Are you into psychedelics by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, I've experimented quite a bit with LSD and mushrooms, and
Hmm.
so I think I think it's good. I don't think they should be illegal. I think they should be legal, and
Yeah.
we should, there should be regulations or techniques or ways that people can use them.
Hmm.
I think making them illegal is just rather ridiculous, but
Yeah.
there's so many things right now that are ridiculous in our society.
I
I
know.
don't even know where to begin. Everything's so rotten.
I
But I
know.
think a lot of it actually has to do with the war on drugs and our inability to deal with consciousness changing substances.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because it's good to change the consciousness.
Yeah. Because like those things open up something in your mind. I mean, it's like anything. If you abuse everything, it's gonna fuck you up. Like, alcohol's illegal and that messes up a lot more people than taking a bit of LSD. But
Mm,
it's just the society we live in. It's scare tactics that, oh, if you take
mm.
LSD, you're gonna go crazy and lose your mind. And that's always been like that, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, I took it last week and it was quite nice actually.
I think it's good. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's you know, things that can, it's better than taking some crazy antidepressants from some pharmaceutical company. So,
Mm. That's
that,
not good.
no, man, that's
Mm.
not good. That's not good at all. But I'm sure I've taken a lot of your time up. I'm sure you're busy, man. I don't want to be taking too much of your time up.
Yeah, no, I'll just go to bed now because it's a bit late. And
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Well,
but
thank you so much, Norman. I really appreciate the time, and I love the books, and I'm definitely going to get the next one for sure.
Great.
Have
Thank you.
have you any time frame when you're going to put it out or finish it, do you reckon?
I need to go to some archives which are now closed because of COVID-19.
Oh, the
So
joy.
the books, the process is a bit slow right now. So let's see. But I hope it's going to be out in 23.
Brilliant. Well,
Yeah.
I'll be buying it.
Good. Thank you.
Great, man. Well, thank you very
So
much for this. I really
yeah,
enjoyed it. Have a lovely sleep.
yeah. Send me a link when the
I will do.
podcast.
I will do
Okay.
indeed. Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Have a good night.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye bye.